urge from inside that's just pulling you towards something. We're trying to force our will upon ourselves and push ourselves forward with something. If it's not working, if it's not got oomph and love and passion and flow and excitement and movement, stop and reassess. Are you doing the right thing? Don't let your logical mind talk you out of it, because I think that's something more than just a desire or a passion. I think it's the universe calling you. Answer the universe. You say yes to something greater.
Remind yourself, like, if if you're gone tomorrow, have you done everything that you wanted to do? Don't wait till you retire to go through your bucket list. Like, do it
Yeah,
now. Take the
yeah,
leap, and you will be
absolutely.
rewarded for it.
And it's how you learn to be in those moments spontaneously. Every moment's different. Every person is different. You work all your life, then you retire, and maybe you have some good years. That was the pattern. And now it's not the pattern. There's a lot of people still living that way, but it's not the pattern anymore. The pattern's been broken and opened up to new possibilities. And like you said, it's like a leap. The power of transformation is in trying to get them to do it their way, not by the success rules, not by the social media rules, do it in a way that's really exciting. But just do one thing you love and turn it over to the universe. So that's how things move. That's just the most beautiful thing, that we are so unique, and it's letting that uniqueness find its way in life.
Hey everyone, my name is Lajoie, and welcome back. Today we have a very, very, very special guest. Her name is Soleira Green. She is a visionary author, quantum coach, and alchemical maestro. She's written 16 books sourcing and teaching on topics like unleashing genius, the real art of transformation, becoming superhuman, and so much more. Okay, so we're going to talk to her about her transformation story and how it led her to live a life of abundance, live a life of success, and live a life of happiness and freedom. Thank you so much. Welcome, Soleira. How do you feel
Yay.
today?
I'm thrilled.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm really, really excited about this. For those of you guys who don't know, I met Soleira through another podcast. But I actually hired her as my coach for a couple of sessions to help me kind of tap into that abundance energy, tap into that quantum energy. And it was such a pleasure working with her. She's so supportive, so loving, and so infinitely abundant. That was one thing I remember from all of our meetings, is that like you had so many ideas, and it was like at some point I was like, okay, I'm just gonna record our meetings and write it down later.
Yay.
So I'm really excited for this episode. Okay, so as y'all know, we're going to be talking about her transformation story and how it allowed her to live a life of success. So, what is the first time that you had this moment of transformation? What was the catalyst for that?
Well, okay. I was on a path, on a corporate ladder kind of thing. I was about midway up, mid-management, going up. And it wasn't going that well. I mean, I was doing all right, but it was so stressful. It just was so not kind of aligned in some way. And then my father died unexpectedly. And that was the catalyst for my first of many transformations. Because up until then, I was pretty much being an ordinary human being, living an ordinary human life, doing all the things you're supposed to do, moving up the corporate ladder, making money, et cetera, et cetera. And then when my dad died, I was like, whoa. And I could feel him around me. And it was the first time ever I'd experienced anything like that about energy or the otherness of life, the invisible parts of life. And it kind of lit a fire under me to begin a journey of transformation. So the first thing I did, I remember coming back from the funeral to my home, and I decided I would change my name. That was the first step. So I went from my birth name I took my father's name, which was Jamie at the time. And so I became Jamie for a while. And then the next time of transformation, I was at a course on transformation. And the course leader asked for, this is a funny story, but the course leader asked us to do a project in the break to go and, create a project and make it happen in the 15-minute break. And mine was to meet a man, fall in love, and get laid.
That's funny.
It had been a long time.
I mean, that's fair. Hey, that's fair. That's fair.
That was a long time ago. And
That's really funny.
so at the time, I didn't, nothing happened on the break. So I went and sat down, and the course leader said, turn to the person beside you and share your project. And so I turned to my left, and there was this wonderful, gorgeous Black man sitting beside me. And I said, well, my project was to meet a man, fall in love, and get laid, but it didn't kind of work. And he said, I'm in. And he became my second husband.
Wow, what? Oh my God, that's crazy. Wow. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
because I'd been
That's
divorced
beautiful.
already when I was doing the normal stuff. And
Hmm.
then he was leading transformation courses. So
Wow.
I left my corporate job, moved from Canada to the United States, just sold everything I had, just moved, full on, and then went into life with him for 6 years. And what happened with that is he went back to the church, the
Mm.
Baptist church. So we moved from Vermont to Atlanta, Georgia, which was a bit of a culture shift because then I was in a
Oh, yes.
3,000 person Black church, right? So, and
Yeah.
he became a deacon. And now I'm not
Wow.
married to a transformational course leader. I'm married to a deacon in the church. And
Yes.
so we eventually split ways because I was going on a slightly different path. But we had a lovely, I mean, we're still really good friends. We're still in touch. He's a wonderful man. I absolutely adore him. So my next transformation was
Wait,
after,
hold on. I want to pause real quick.
yeah,
I know, because I know there's a lot of transformation stories. Well, first of all, I want to backtrack. So you mentioned that you took on your father's name, Jamie,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Um, what called you to do that? Because I mean, a lot of people, I know a lot of people who their family members pass away, and I've actually never heard of somebody taking on that family member's past, or that family member's name, right?
yeah,
That's really honorable and significant.
yeah.
So what was like the thought process behind that? Was it just explain the thought process
It
of
was a declaration of a new beginning.
mm,
It really wasn't so much about, oh, I want to honor my father. It was, I liked the name, Jamie,
mm-hmm,
for a girl. I thought that was a really wonderful name. And I was ready to kind of start anew. Life was
mm-hmm,
kind of getting too tight, too stressful, too everything. Just wasn't working for me.
mm-hmm,
And so as I was riding back to my home from where the funeral was, I was like, this is a declaration. I'm going to start over. And it was interesting because as soon as I got back, I signed up to do my first transformation course. And it just like went from there. And then that's how I met my second husband, was
mm-hmm.
in the series of transformation courses that I was doing. So that was
Yeah.
fascinating. And I think it probably always transformation probably always fascinated me,
Mm-hmm.
because we have our potential, which is kind of close to us. We kind of know what it is. We know, we've probably known from kids what we really want to do and be, and that's our potential. And so transformation for me was moving from where you were to fulfill your potential.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm living a little bit beyond that. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm living in what I would call quantum possibility.
Mm-hmm.
So I've taken transformation and elevated it to a next level, which consists of a series of what I call epiphanies, which are essentially versions of transformations.
Right. Okay, and
So
we get to that soon.
yeah,
But no, so I mean, I just want to say I think it's really beautiful that, to change your name, to change
well,
your
you can
name. I
see
think
I've
it's
done it. I've done it twice, right?
yeah. I mean, it's
Because it was my
really
birth name, then I became Jamie, and then I became Soleira
oh,
later.
okay. Okay,
Yeah.
we will get to that, but I just think it's it's like cutting your hair. It's really, I think it's even more deeper really than cutting your hair.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're really taking on a new identity,
A
a
new
new name.
phase of life, a new level of yourself, a new possibility. And I wanted that something that would demonstrate that. And in both cases, that I changed my first name 3 times.
Yeah.
So, well, twice. I changed it from the original twice. And now I love my name. I wouldn't change it for anything. I absolutely, it really fits. My birth name was Julie, and it just never fit me. I
Mm-hmm.
never even liked it as a kid. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it just didn't seem to represent who I wanted to be in the world. And I think, part of what we're talking about with transformations, you have to be willing to kind of leap sometimes into it, like be
You're right.
bold and courageous and take chances and go for it, because there's just new pathways waiting for us and new possibilities waiting for us that we can't predict from where we are. And to
Yeah.
me, that's part of the transformational process, is to be able to go onto those paths, you
Yeah.
know? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's an element of bravery.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
You have to kind of, and bravery from the sense that you really have to follow your intuition, follow that feeling of
Yes.
radical love
Yeah.
for yourself, and really let go of the thoughts that are being projected onto you by other people. Because 9 times out of 10, it's
Yes.
not coming from us; it's coming from
Oh,
other
yeah.
people in our life who haven't done the work that they need to love themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's what I mean by brave, right? You need to be able to really step into that energy, say, no, I know, this direction is going to take me where I need to be. I know that what they're saying isn't going to serve me to go in that direction. So I just need to go.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
and
calling. There's
yeah,
like an urging inside you that pulls you in those directions. And sometimes people talk themselves out of it. And I don't think we should talk ourselves out of it. I think we should take the leap, because it's something greater. The universe is dangling carrots in front of us, you know?
mhm. Oh, I love
and,
that. I love that.
and saying, come on, here's another path for
Mm-hmm.
you. So,
Right.
like, if you think about me, so I went from living in Canada until I was 34, and then lived in the States, married a second time until 1996. So I was 46 at the time. And then I quit my job, sold everything, and moved to the UK. And that was the next. So now I've been living in the UK for 28 years and love it. Absolutely love it. Married to my third husband, which but other people listening to this wouldn't know. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just incredible how sometimes, well, yeah, you have to take that leap in order to find out, oh, this was a place for me, right? I really want to touch on the Deacon part real quick.
Yeah, go for
Because
it.
I've just literally actually this week I just learned about what that meant for the partner in the relationship, right? There,
Yeah,
it's not just the man. The wife also has to go through well, you can explain this actually. I don't know the details of it, but I know that the wife also has to go through a process because it's like a partnership. When the man or the individual wants to become a deacon,
yeah.
you're hooked into that. It's not the one person. No, you're hooked into that. So can you just touch
Well,
on that real quick on like what were some of those responsibilities and
yeah,
what were
it
some
wasn't,
of
I wasn't forced into doing anything in the church.
the Mhm.
I did get baptized in the
Okay.
church, and, just, it was an amazing experience. There were 3,000 people in the church. It was 100-person choir with a band backing it up with drum sets and trumpets, and the minister would sing and people would faint in the aisles, and it was all that kind of, it was like, for a small town Canadian girl, it was a wonderful cultural experience. But I was on my own questing path
Mhm.
at the time. And I was searching for things around energy and consciousness and, anything that would show me what I had experienced when my dad died. Like, well, there's something there we can't see and can't touch. What is that? I wanted to know what that was.
Mhm.
And so he was going this way and I was going this
Yeah.
way.
Mhm.
And eventually we just made the decision that we would just separate and get divorced. And then I moved into a house in Atlanta, Georgia, in a field with no other houses around, and lived with two other women at the time, and
Mhm.
started to do all kinds of wonderful workshops and training and stuff like that. So it
Wow.
was an exciting time,
Yeah,
actually.
and it's yeah, I was gonna say you can't find that in Atlanta anymore. That's a field. I was like, I don't think I've ever see the times when I did go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's fields, but not like that. Like the housing market is crazy.
It was out, it was in Roswell, Georgia, which is just on the outskirts. And it may no longer be a field because that was 1996. That's quite a while ago. So
Oh, girl, yeah, yeah, it might be a little
yeah,
different now.
yeah,
Okay, cool. So, yeah, so you guys just decided to go your own ways, which I think is beautiful because I think what social media and what TV projects onto us is that like divorce is so ugly. And I
oh
just
heck,
love to hear about stories where it's like, no, this it can be a
yeah,
somewhat peaceful process. Obviously, if you've been with somebody for 6 years, there's gonna be emotional wounds, stuff's gonna come up.
yeah,
But it's really good to hear that um there are peaceful experiences or somewhat peaceful, I guess I can say it
yeah.
like that.
No, it was, we were good friends, have stayed good friends. He's remarried, I've remarried. We stay in touch over social media and stuff. He's a lovely, lovely man, just a beautiful, beautiful man. Absolutely, it's inside and out, just a gorgeous man. And I'm thrilled he remarried and found someone who could go into the church with him, which is
Yeah.
wonderful. And I
Yeah.
found someone who's a partner with me on my quest, so but yeah, I mean, I've been divorced twice and married 3 times, and I highly recommend it. I mean, I just I can't quite. There are people who get married young and stay married for like 50 years.
Hmm.
My brother's one of those. My brother's coming up on 50 years with his wife, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But I was an adventurer in
Mm,
life, whereas my brother still lives in the small town that we grew up in.
mm,
So I was like, no, I want to experience life. I want to live in different countries. I want to go for it and have a life that's rich with experiences and understanding and seeing the world and, that kind of thing. So I've lived now in 5 different countries and traveled to many more, as I'm sure you have too. But even more than the countries, it's about, for me, the quality of your life.
mhm,
It's not, it's when you were talking about success earlier, it's not for me about loads of money. It's not for me about loads of people following me necessarily. That's not my measure of of fulfillment is the word I would use. My measure of fulfillment is the quality of my life, the quality of my friendships, the fulfillment of the work that I do in the world, the creations that I'm contributing, and that kind of thing. So believe me, I am super fulfilled. I'm like, if I went tomorrow, I'd be like, whoa, that was a great life. That's how I feel about it. And I would wish that on everybody.
mhm.
And I think to do that, you have to be an adventurer in a way. You have to be willing to take leaps and go for it when the calling comes upon you. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love hearing that. I think that's something we need to hear more of. When you start to choose to live a life fulfilled, you have that moment and it's like
Yeah.
if I go tomorrow, I know that I came here to do the work that I do. It's a really good reminder for those of you listening and watching who need a little kick in the butt. you know
Yeah.
Remind yourself, like, if you're gone tomorrow, have you done everything that you wanted to do? Don't wait till you retire to go through your bucket list. Like, do it
Yeah.
now. Take the
Yeah.
leap and you will be
Absolutely.
rewarded for it. That's the other thing you have to realize. You will be rewarded. There's no consequences, no you're gonna be rewarded for it. You just have to
Yeah.
take that leap, and you have to really believe and truly believe.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, that God, the universe, whatever your source is at the end of the day, right? Because everybody's gonna have a different perspective. Um, you need to just like allow for God to just like kind of support you. You know, we live in this, we've not lived, but we've been conditioned to see a world of fear when we really need to start seeing a world of love. And if there is fear, if there is things that will be deemed negative, learn that that is going to be an experience, and see that that experience is actually going to teach you the lessons that you need to learn to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
super.
let me tell you that if you have a calling, you know, that urge from inside that's just pulling you towards something, don't let your logical mind talk you out of it. Because I think that's something more than just a desire or a passion. I think it's the universe calling you into something. And when you answer the universe, you say yes to something greater, it kind of takes care of you. That's been my experience. Like, you know, after I left my husband in Atlanta, Georgia, and I read The Mists of Avalon and came to the UK for a 2-week vacation, I had an epiphany on the top of the Glastonbury tour on the summer solstice, 2 a.m. in the morning, full moon, drunken revelers dancing, the whole bit. And I just had this epiphany. I mean, it was like this energy just blasted through me and then blasted out from me. I've never experienced anything like it since.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a calling to be something other than I had been up to that point in my life. Because up to then, I'd been me, a normal
Mm-hmm.
human being doing normal life things, but starting on a quest.
Mm-hmm.
And on that, after that moment of epiphany, I was on a completely different path. So I remember sitting on the Glastonbury tour the next day in the sunshine and thinking, I don't think I can go back to my 9 to 5 job. So I was working for a software company at the time and doing management for them and stuff. And I just thought, I can't do it. I've had this experience and I'm going to have to go back, quit my job and sell everything I own with no understanding of how I'm going to stay in the UK. Because you could come then back then on 6 months on a tourist visa. And it was like, are you, my mother was like, are you nuts? Like, you know, my whole family was like, I think she's lost it this time, kind of thing. And there was a point where about 6, 7 months in, because I came back again on another tourist visa, and I then met my husband, but we weren't married yet. And there was a point where we left the center we were working in, where we got room and board, and we had 75 pounds in the bank, which is about $125. And a friend lent us a tent, and we went and lived in a tent for 2 weeks.
Oh,
I
okay.
remember I remember phoning my mother and telling her all this, and she was like, "Oh my God, you're homeless." I was like, "No, Mom, really, it's magical. It's amazing. I'm having the time of my life. This is incredible." You know, it was just, I wrote my first book at that campground. We rented a computer for £5, plugged it into the electrics, and wrote my first book there. And it was just, everything from there has just been the universe taking care of us, I guess you could say. Now that was 1996, so that was a long time ago, what, 28 years ago, quite some time. So, and yes, I am still married to my third husband.
Yeah, I love to
And
hear
he's
that.
wonderful. Yeah. Third
Yeah,
time's lucky, I guess. So there you go.
yeah, third time's the charm. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, and my life here, it's like I became something more than I was probably destined to become.
Mm,
Because you know, as a normal person growing up in Canada, what I wanted to do was be a run a company.
mm-hmm,
That was my desire.
mm-hmm,
And now that wouldn't be my desire at all. I mean, I do run a business of my own,
mm-hmm.
Centauri Night, but um, now my goal is to remake the world.
Yeah.
That's my work.
Mm-hmm.
Let's remake the world into something fabulously, fantastically, awesomely connected, conscious, intelligent, brilliant, you know, loving nature, loving life, loving, I mean, much more than all of that. And I now work with a group of people where we do that work energetically in consciousness and embedding it into our own lives and into our own reality.
Mm-hmm.
So we're reality creators, you could say, is what we're now doing, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody has that potential, right?
Yeah.
To be a reality creator in their own way. Like where do you, just for the audience, like where do you envision yourself being and truly like see it from a perspective of no limits, right? I think that's the important part is that, and what I've learned from you is that you don't limit yourself.
No.
I mean, to recreate the world, to have that intention is a very big intention, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when you come from a space of limitlessness, um, you can truly create that world. Like, but you have to come
Yes.
from that space, that potential that there are no limits.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to maybe the first time you experienced this when you were in Glastonbury. Is that what it's called?
Glastonbury. Yeah.
Glastonbury. Okay. Um, what brought you to go to that in the first place? Like,
Oh,
what was
that's a good question. Yeah.
behind it?
I read The Mists of Avalon. Have you ever read it?
No. Sorry.
It's a
I know Avalon.
fictional it's a fictional story about King Arthur and his sister Morgana, who was a
Mm-hmm.
priestess of Avalon. In the book, she's a priestess of Avalon. And it's a myth that is all over the UK, Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and all that stuff. Um, but what I was looking for at the time was a female role model because there weren't any. Like, no matter, you got to remember, I was born in 1950. So when I was coming out of university, you got to be a teacher, a nurse, a wife, or a secretary. Those were your choices. There
Mm-hmm.
weren't any other choices back then. So things have really moved on, even though there's still a long way to go, but it's quite moved on. And in 1996, there just, I couldn't find a role model of a woman or women that I could model myself after because I didn't want to be the ultra feminine woman. I wanted to be an adventurer at
Mm-hmm.
the same time as I was looking to find some kind of fulfillment and making a difference in the world, you know, that kind of thing. And I read The Mists of Avalon, and it's set in Glastonbury. So Glastonbury was the Isle of Avalon at one point in time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very mystical, amazing, magical place. Just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think it's come into the 21st century.
Wow. Oh my God.
It, it's very much a magical place. So it's a little bit like Sedona, but less modern.
Okay.
You know, Sedona is that kind of Mecca, and
Mm-hmm.
Glastonbury is that kind of Mecca as well. So I read the book and I just knew I just had to go. It was like a calling so powerful. I just had to go. So I found somebody who was organizing a small group to go to Glastonbury for 2 weeks, and I just leapt on it and went. And that's when I had the epiphany. And now, by the way, speaking of female role models, I think there's plenty of them today. I think
Mm.
there's a new version of woman available, which is unique, powerful, brilliant, creative, genius, you know, unleashed, all
Mm-hmm.
of that, you know, yourself included.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah. I love that you said that. It's an abundance of the unleashed feminine.
yeah,
And I think the media is kind of doing a good job of controlling that narrative and saying, no, this is what, but it's still cool that social media allows women to have access to more role models. And yeah, sometimes maybe those role models, only have like a couple thousand followers on Instagram. But even like earlier today, I was listening to another podcast, and I was just so thankful that there was another woman who kind of had similar values,
Yeah.
coming from a similar background.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and that's a really good point that I wanted that you said earlier too. You're talking about how in the 50s you had three options, right? Was it
Yeah.
secretary, for some of us maid, right?
Secretary, nurse,
Um,
teacher, or wife.
yep. Um, and uh and that was something that one of my college professors told me too. She was like,
Yeah.
when she was starting out, she was a single mother, but she was like, the only option I had was secretary. And she was like, you went to school for it? That's what you went to school for? You didn't try to
Yeah.
become a doctor? She was like, no, you got to choose secretary or nurse. And that's what she did. And I think the universe kind of helped her eventually become a college professor, which she said it was very
Yeah.
hard to do back in her time. So
Yeah.
y'all, like, if you around my age, like, or younger, recognize we live in a very, 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 very special time. Like, even going back, like, I would say like 10, 20 years ago, um looking at the female rap industry, is
Yeah.
completely changed now. Like I said, they have a specific narrative that they're pushing, but to have this abundance of women, who hopefully at some point are expanding, who they are, and really truly unleashing themselves.
Yeah.
It's very special to have that in this time, because we didn't have this before. Like, this is it's
Yeah.
very pivotal time that we have.
Well, the other change that's happened around it is when I was young, it was like if you were an actress or a musician, you had till you were about 30 and then you were too old. And now you've got Cher and Dolly Parton and Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin and, et cetera. And they're all in their 70s and 80s. And even the guys too, the Rolling Stones and Paul McCartney. And there's so many of them. Like Paul McCartney's still doing 3-hour concerts and he's 80 years old. You
That's
know,
crazy. I couldn't, sorry. I just like,
I
because I
know.
want to perform on a stage, but 3-hour concerts, nah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy for me. But
But see, it's the whole age piece has changed as well. And I
yes.
think it's not just about women either, but for all of us, I think we have more options
Mm-hmm.
today
Mm-hmm.
to create ourselves in the way we want to create ourselves. And that was one of the joys for me, if I bring this back to the transformation pieces, is that once I got to the UK and I was going through these series of epiphanies, and I was away from family and everybody who knew me, and I'd changed my name, and I got married again, and it was like I could start over and be who I wanted to be, because no, when you're raised in the same place and everybody knows you, they develop expectations and you kind of live into them. Well, I wasn't. By the time I hit the UK, I could be anything I wanted to be. And that was when I really began to create myself as I wanted to be, rather than what my upbringing and my learning and my genetics and my, was going to have me be.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I think I've superseded all that. I've come into a level of, well, heck, we can be anything we want. And now I coach people like that,
Mm-hmm.
that we can create ourselves. We have so many options and we're so unique.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of my passions is about being that uniqueness in the world and expressing it innovatively and differently.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm coaching people, I'm trying to get them to do it their way, not by the success rules, not by the social media rules, do it in a way that's really exciting. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and that's truly tapping into abundance and God energy, or the universal energy, right? The universe is
yeah,
limitless. Like, the earth is limitless, like, there's limitless resources. This is like, I don't know,
yeah,
some people in the comments might, argue about that, but no, there is limited resources. Like, it's, or not limited, unlimited resources in the states
yeah,
and in the world. But but it's really important to recognize that, because once you recognize that, then your world becomes limitless, right? You
yes,
become this source of abundance.
yes,
And so you start to navigate life and navigate this human experience from a very different standpoint, from the standpoint of God, from the standpoint of this higher consciousness, from this infinite potential.
Yes,
And that's where the magic happens. And it's really
that
hard.
is it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's really hard to have that magic happen if you're still operating from a space of like thinking through every problem, or
Yeah.
thinking, okay, I have to take this business course to operate my business, and I need to make sure this person's successful so I can have success too. You just kind of, how do you put this, you're recreating the wheel, not recreating the wheel, but like you're kind of hopping on the wheel,
Yeah.
right? And what you need to start doing is kind of creating your own will, like kind of think about it from the perspective of the people who are teaching these courses, right? They didn't study everybody else. They made their own method
Yeah.
of doing something, and now they're teaching it to you. But at the end of the day,
Yeah.
if you truly want to live in that space of abundance, you have to tap into what's inside of you and make your own version of that, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that, so I source breakthroughs in areas that help the world move forward. And one of them that I took on was Unleashing Genius. So when I took that on in 2012, pretty much the world's view of genius was you're either born with it or you're not. You're a
Mm,
prodigy or you're not. Or you disciplined yourself really hard in a particular thing and you got good, so good at it, you became a genius at it. And what I was saying at the time, and I spent 3 years researching it and teaching it and coaching it and, doing all kinds of stuff with it. What I was saying is, no, everyone has genius inside them. It just doesn't look like you expect it to look because it's so unique. And
mm,
it's the unleashing of that unique genius that gifts us the fulfilled life. Now, combine that, the unleashing of the inner passions and skills and mastery and power and all of that, combine that with being connected with what I was talking about, that the invisible factor, you
mm,
know, consciousness, the universe, whatever people want to, how you, energy, vibrational frequency, all of that's invisible stuff. But like you said, that's where the magic happens. So in order to access that, you have to kind of unleash what's inside you in order to plug into this the invisible forces and powers and flows. And one of those flows is genius from the universe. So when I think you said at one point, I'm constantly coming up with all kinds of ideas.
mhm,
And that comes from here. It comes from what I would call the genius field or the quantum field, whatever you want to call it. And I just plug in and it just pours on through me and gives me all these ideas for myself and others. And anybody can do that. But
mhm.
it's being aware that, because most people live in a tiny suit, they're
Yes. Oh, not the suit, but you're right. You're right. It's a suit because they don't ever like unzip and walk out of it, right? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And when you can kind of let the suit go and kind of breathe, like that's why people stand on top of mountains and stand in front of beaches where the ocean is and, look at the stars at night, because it gives you that feeling of expansion, of something, you connect with something greater than yourself. You breathe deeper, you're more open. And that's part of the process of unleashing what's in you that's meant to be given to the world and connecting to something greater, which is going to help you fulfill that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and what I want this is. So I think it's a really important concept to understand. Everybody can be a genius. For
Yes.
me, interpretation of genius is originality. How original, how close you are to the origin, how close you are to source, how close you are to God. Um, and stepping into that power. And it's kind of this radical thing you have to do. One thing that I always tell people when it comes to like self love is, you have to practice it at first, but there's going to be at a point where you just tell yourself, I love you. I love myself. Like when I'm cooking, I'd be like, oh my God, that was so good. I love myself. Like it's like so genuine, right? It comes
Yeah.
out so naturally.
Yeah.
And when you step into that genius power, you start telling yourself, oh, I'm a genius. Like that was like, so it's like, it's really important to recognize that and recognize your genius and recognize the points in your life where you're original. What, because everybody's creative. I really don't
Yeah.
believe that nobody is not creative. Like that's crazy. It's
I
crazy,
think so too. Yeah.
crazy
In
thing.
all different ways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I coach people who are creative in remaking the matrix of reality. And
Mhm.
then I coach people who are actual artists who do the most incredible paintings. And I coach writers and I coach business people who are coming up with brand new concepts of how to take us forward and, et cetera. It's in writing books and it's what's in us is so unique. And I don't think we should ever try and fit ourselves into modalities.
Mhm.
Okay, step one, step two, step three, you do this and then you're successful.
Mhm.
I think instead you have to let it rip, let it out.
Mhm.
Let what's inside you come out because it's beautiful
Mhm.
and it is ultra creative in some way, in whatever form that takes.
Mhm.
Like, the person I'm talking about who remakes the matrix of reality,
Mhm.
that's a hard thing to have genius about because you don't tell many people and most people wouldn't understand it if you did.
Mhm.
But, that's an incredible genius,
Mhm.
like really incredible. So I was just talking to her today and I said, if you create a course called Matrix Makers, I'm in.
Yeah, right.
I want to
Everyone,
know how you do that.
yes, I love
You
it. I
know?
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I mean, it's like you just need to tap into it. That's it. That's literally it. Maybe not tap in, but you got to be open to it,
Yeah.
and you have to, we say magic, but I think now since we're in this age of like spirituality and science, I really think quantum is like the right word, right?
I do
Because
too. Yeah.
quantum is just taking like this timeline,
Yeah.
and I wish I had like a string, but basically you take the string and it's like this is time, right? And you just
Yeah.
kind of pinch it together so the person goes from one end to the other.
Yes.
And to us it looks like magic, right? This is why we call it magic, because we're like, how did we don't see the how, we don't see how this happened, we just see it
Yeah.
happen, right?
Yeah.
um but really it's quantum science, quantum spirituality, how whatever you want to call it, that is the quantum, right? It's this
Yeah.
idea that we can just with a snap of your finger hop from point A to point B. You're
Yeah.
there magically. Everybody else is wondering how. And maybe low key, you are also wondering how too, but it's just that ability of tapping into the quantum, right? And everybody has access to this no matter what you do, no matter where you come from,
Yeah.
no matter who you think you are.
Yeah.
You have access to this in every aspect of your life. You just got to tap into it.
Well, that's another one of the areas that I was creating a breakthrough in, which I would call quantum intelligence, because most intelligence is believed to be in the mind. Like everybody associates it with the mind and memory and IQ and all that kind of thing. But when you plug the brain into a greater intelligence, because there is a greater intelligence pervasive in everything. It's in nature, it's in the stars, it's in creation in the universe, it's in the things that happen to us, it's everywhere. And it's like plugging a computer into the internet.
Mm.
That's how it occurs for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I call it quantum intelligence. I've used other terms like infinite intelligence and source intelligence and stuff like that, but quantum intelligence is a good word for it. And I agree, quantum is the language I would use
Mm-hmm.
for it as well, because it would have been before we're born like this, we're raised like this, we're taught like this. Here's our genetics. There's what you're going to be. There's your life mapped out for you. And you work all your life, then you retire, and maybe you have some good years. That
Mm-hmm.
was the pattern. And
Mm-hmm.
now it's not the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people still living that way, but it's not the pattern
Mm-hmm.
anymore. The pattern's been broken
Yeah.
and opened up to new possibilities. And like you said, it's like a leap, like me going from Canada to being married and living in the States. That was a quantum leap.
Mhm.
And then to go from there, divorce and coming over to the UK, that was a quantum leap. And then to have an epiphany and go back and quit my job, that was a quantum leap.
Mhm.
And that those are forms of transformation or transcendence. Sometimes I use the term of it. We're superseding what would have been in the past our destined pathways.
Mm.
And we're able to supersede that expectation of us and become something so much more that it like the sky's the limit, literally, on
Mhm.
it. You can do anything today that you
Mhm.
want to do. It's not, it doesn't mean you have to have a lot of money to do it.
Mhm.
It's just not like that anymore. There's just ways of doing everything. So one of the things that happened to us is, in 2016, my husband and I left a house of 11 years, got rid of all the furniture we owned, bought a car, and had the back seat of the car had everything we owned in it. And
Wow.
we went and traveled around the world for a year and a half. And that was the next kind of move for me, because I was looking for, where's my place?
Mhm.
Where am I meant to be? Where am I meant to do my work?
Mhm.
And it was here, Glastonbury, because that's where I met my husband. It's where I had the epiphany. And we lived in Spain for 6 months. We went to Australia for 3 months. We went on a cruise around New Zealand. We traveled around the UK to different places and things like that. And this was my place.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say it's everybody's place,
Mhm.
but you know when you found your place. It's
Mhm.
like you belong somehow. It's like putting the slot in the hole. It's
Mhm.
like, there, I'm home, I'm in the right place. And that's how it felt for me. Have you ever felt that in any of your travels?
Um, I'm trying to think. I'm like, I feel like I could say yes, but actually, I feel like I felt it briefly when I was in Bali because I had my community, but then it was one of those manifestation lessons. Like I had intended, I want to live on a big island, where I can escape if I want to, but also, hang out with my friends if I want to. And I wanted to be like a community of people of color. And it was crazy because when I went to Bali, I didn't even look for it when I went to Bali. It just kind of happened.
Yeah,
And so when I experienced that, I realized that I just don't want a people of color community. I want like a diverse community of conscious people.
yeah,
That's kind of when I kind of realized. So I guess at this point in my life now, that's what I'm looking for.
yeah,
And I found it online, but the physical like place I think I found it, but I have to kind of go there and experience it to really,
yeah, yeah.
um, but yeah, so I haven't really experienced that yet. Um, but so actually I wanted to ask you, how, like, what was the process of you finding that place? Did you like intend for that to happen? Did you try to manifest it? What was the process of you're like, okay, I'm ready to be in my community? Like, how did you get to that point?
Well, when we left where we lived for 11 years here, and we went on this journey. At first, we thought it would be Spain, and I thought I wanted to live on the Mediterranean. I wanted water
Mm,
views and
mm,
sunrises and sunsets, and just to be near water. And we did live on a beach for 3 months, which was wonderful. Had all those views and stuff, but it wasn't enough for me.
mm,
And then we went to Australia, and we have great friends there and a great community of friends, and we had a great time. And then we went on the cruise around New Zealand, and New Zealand's wonderful. But I thought I'd be on a boat in the middle of the ocean, and there'd be tons of energy because it's a clear space in the bottom of the world, like
right.
nothing. I didn't feel a thing. So
Mm, mhm,
after we were supposed to go from, as we were coming back to Sydney on the cruise from New Zealand, we were supposed to go for a month in Bali.
mhm.
And as the boat was coming into the Sydney harbor, we both turned to each other and said, we're going back home.
Wow.
And we just gave up the trip, lost $6,000 because we paid for all the hotels and just lost it all, didn't care, and came back to the UK
Mhm.
because that's what was calling. And as soon as we came back, we just zeroed right to here because this was the place where the energy was for both of us.
Mhm.
So, it was the energy that was calling us, I guess. And
Mhm.
now I don't want to go anywhere else. I'm like,
That's beautiful. I mean, yeah, I don't know, when I was younger, that's what I wanted. I was like, I want to be part of like one place for like 10 years and I have my community and I have, and then when I started traveling, I realized like I'm kind of happy like traveling. So I don't know what the future holds for me. I know that kids are definitely going to change how I travel and maybe make it a little slower of a process, which is fine.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I always wanted that. But I think at this stage in my life, I'm like, do I truly want that? I don't think I'm quite ready to settle down yet.
yeah, good for you. Don't settle down early.
Yeah, maybe that's what maybe I was like, maybe it's too early. But I think like maybe in my 40s, I don't know. We'll see. I really, I think like what I've come to learn is that, this is your world. You make of it what you want. If you want to
Yeah,
have the ideal lifestyle, and if you want to intend that even though I'm traveling, my kids are still really reaping all of the benefits from traveling, then that's what will happen. But if you
yeah,
travel and you're like, oh my God, it's really affecting my kids negatively, we need to settle down, then that's what's going to happen. Right. So it's like you really make it how you want it to be. Like
yeah,
it's really your world at the end of the day.
yeah.
Um,
Well, here's what's interesting. So I never wanted kids in my life,
mhm,
but because I always wanted to be an adventure of some kind.
mhm,
And my husband never had kids either.
mhm,
And he got married. We got married when I was 46, he was 44. So,
mhm.
it wasn't a question. But what's wonderful is that now we have no duties to perform. We're not beholden to anybody.
Mhm,
We live as we want to live and
mhm,
we make our own choices and we come and go as we please. There's
mhm,
nothing we have to do for anybody. So
mhm,
it's pretty cool actually. It's a
mhm.
wonderful, I recommend it. But for people who that's their calling,
Right.
it's a lot of young women think, oh, well, you have to have kids. Well,
Mm.
you don't necessarily, if you want them, if that's your calling, yay, go for it. I think it's a beautiful thing. But if it's not, don't fuss it. You're like, go live your life and enjoy
Yes.
it
Yes.
completely. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. There is a pressure for women to have kids. And you don't need to, I have friends too. They're like, no, I don't want kids. I'm cool being the auntie. Like they're totally fine with it. And that's fine. Like there's absolutely no shame in that. Like I said earlier, like this is your world. This is your experience.
Yeah.
You make it what you want. You experience what you came here to experience.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes,
Absolutely.
our higher selves know a little bit more of what we need to experience or what we intended to experience when we came here to this earth that we don't know really in this present moment.
Yeah.
Um, but it's your life. Like never, I think one of the things you taught me was like don't live in these boxes. And sometimes we have
Yeah.
multiple boxes that we box ourselves into.
Oh, yeah.
Get out of those boxes and just be more open to truly like what you want to experience and like who you want to be. Like it's
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's you, it's your life. Like it's really
Absolutely.
crazy. Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You get to create who you want to be. And I know that can sound a little risky to people who are just getting started.
Mhm.
When I was in my 20s, I was like, wow, I had no idea where I was going or what I wanted to do or anything. But what you realize as you go through life and you have these wonderful experiences and these transformations and all of that is that really everything always turns out all right.
Yeah.
It really does.
Mhm.
It's amazing. Even the worst things that might ever happen, were probably the best things that ever happened to me. Like, when my dad died, that was just devastating to me
Mhm.
at the time. And then all of a sudden I could feel him. And that opened the door to everything I've become in life. So
Mhm.
what looked like tragedy that most people would experience that way, instead was the doorway to the next level of me. And,
Mm.
thanks, Dad. That
Right,
was
right, right.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
And even the divorces, they
Mm-hmm.
were all the right steps.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I hadn't taken them, if I'd forced myself to stay in something that wasn't feeling right anymore, then
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have contributed in the way that I contribute. Oh, and that leads me to, because you were talking about community.
Mm-hmm.
I have a fantastic community, global community. New Zealand, Australia, Malaysia, Denmark, Norway, France, Spain, Canada, US, and UK. Yeah, people from all over the world. And they're like me, they're adventurers, they're creators. They want to do things to make the world more wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we come together and do that. I call us a murmuration of maestros.
I love that.
Isn't that nice? Because murmuration, starlings, and they all fly. They don't have like a leader. The leader changes all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and they never run into each other. So
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how we operate as a community. Everyone is a maestro of their own unique genius, power, and mastery.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we go to do consciousness innovation work, we're going to create new breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
All I do is host it. I just go. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to direct them, because
Mm-hmm.
if I direct them, then that's me imposing something, and the universe might have much better ideas
Mm-hmm.
than that. So we all do what we do, and then we each share what we've done. And I have this skill of being able to see it fusing together into one big thing. So we might go 3 or 4 times as we're doing breakthroughs. And
Mm-hmm.
then poof, there it is. We pulled it out of the air. And then we make that a living reality in our own lives and in the world. However, we all do that because we're all doing it in our own different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Oh,
exciting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's such a beautiful process. I want to talk about like how is the process of going from the idea to creating it in reality? And yeah, if you just want to talk about your process too, that's totally fine.
Okay, when you say idea, can you define that a little bit more for me? Are you talking about someone who has a vision, or someone who wants to run a business, or somebody who wants to make the world? Like, give me examples, because it's a little different for each one of those.
Yeah, so okay, so let's backtrack real quick. So you do this workshop with all of your maestros. Um and they get downloads. You can correct
Yeah.
me, you can downloads of information from source, from God, from the universe. And then they have to create it, right? So I guess in the workshop they get all different kinds of ideas. Is that what you're saying? Or okay.
Okay, well,
Um
I'll take it like that. So let's say we've created a breakthrough
mhm,
in consciousness. I'm trying to think so one of the breakthroughs we created in consciousness during the COVID time was unleashing more miraculousness in nature.
mm,
And it just kind of came upon us as a good thing to do while the world was quiet. And of course, the
mhm.
nature was surging anyways because humans weren't stomping all over it, right? So,
Right, right,
but
right.
each one of us had a unique way to do that. And we did it energetically, we did it in consciousness, we did it in relationship, we did it with oceans, we did it with trees and myceliums and all of that kind of thing, right? And then that next spring, everything here was greener than I've ever seen it be green. And the flowers, where you'd get dandelions that were usually about this big, they were like this big, and
Wow.
great big bold yellow, like,
Yeah.
and all the flowers, you'd walk by the flowers and go, oh my God, like the flower was right in your face, as opposed to, oh, nice flowers.
Right, right, right. Over there.
So how did we then bring that into reality? Well, one of our people, she and her partner, are members of the World Cetacean Alliance, which is an alliance of people all over the world that love whales, dolphins, turtles,
Mhm.
ocean creatures. And they still to this day work with them. So, excuse me, they would work with ocean
Mm-hmm.
and the creatures in the oceans, for example, in a very practical way, because they're part of an affiliation of people that are doing things like that. Whereas others took herbal medicine courses and started to work with the magic of medicine. Others would get interested in rewilding and soil regeneration
Mm-hmm.
and might take a focus like that. Others might just play in their gardens and from their gardens
Mm-hmm.
connect with the earth and bring it. Some of them would just walk in forests.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? And one of them lives in Miami, Florida, and every day at 6 a.m. goes in the ocean and does the ocean thing.
Yeah,
Like
right.
like we all have our own ways of bringing it into manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'll talk about it in another different way, which is something that's really coming to the fore right now. Um, Oceans and water, and you know, back about 20 years ago, the guy talked about you put words on water and it changed the molecular structure. They would
Yes.
take, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we were working recently, like in the last years, on the sentient intelligence of everything, the source intelligence of everything. So whales, dolphins, bees, trees, forests, mycelium networks, to be even more source sentient and
Mm-hmm.
more quantum intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lady in New Zealand called Veda Austin. I don't know if you've heard of her. Have you?
No, I mean, no, I haven't. The word Veda comes, to mind. I think because there's a nebula or there's something in the star. It's called Veda. I don't know
Well,
what it is.
Veda Austin is in love with water. I went to hear her talk in Glastonbury last October and I follow her online. But what she's done is taken that whole concept of you putting a word on water and so she believes that water is sentiently source intelligent. And
Mm,
so here's just one example. So she uses a freezing technique to get water to answer her with pictures. So she
mm,
had a friend, this is blow your mind. She
mhm,
had a friend in India, and she's in New Zealand with the water, right? She's got a dish of water. She asked her friend in India to telepathically send the water in the dish
mhm,
an image of something in her life that she wanted
mhm,
to pass on. And the woman was dealing with the fear of drowning. So
mhm,
she pictured herself in the Ganges River, standing on a stone. So her head was above the water was here, and she was
mhm,
standing on a stone. So then Vedas had no idea what she'd sent the water.
mhm,
But after the sending happened, she froze the water, and the water produced a picture of a stone with a person on it with a water
mhm,
across the neck. Duplicated from India telepathy to
yeah,
the water in New Zealand, the
mhm,
exact picture the woman sent.
yeah.
Now, that is mind-boggling.
I mean,
You
I
know,
think
when
it's.
you
Oh, go
when you
ahead.
realize something like that, you
Hmm.
gotta rethink the world.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of opens doorways to thinking differently and realizing how amazing nature and animals and the earth and the stars and universe is.
Hmm.
So I think that's just like super exciting. And
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
that's to me is one of the outcomes of us working on the quantum sentient intelligence of everything.
yeah, yeah, and it's just the power of intention or attention, whichever one
Yeah.
you want to choose. So I mean, I come from a science background. I majored in biology, graduated with a biology degree in college. And one of the last things that I learned wasn't even from the bio department, it was from the physics department, which if you know me, I don't like physics because it didn't make any sense in my mind. But anyway, so but I had friends who were studying physics, and so I, oftentimes I would talk to some of the physics professors because they also were dabbling in philosophy. And I think one of the physics professors was actually Buddhist. So anyway, so the last year of my college like education, it was like anything but biology. But this is when the news, of these studies, which I think this maybe even happened 10 years prior to me learning about it. But the studies, the physics studies, where the person who was doing the studying had affected how the particles were behaving.
Yeah.
And so this is studies that have been done, but maybe isn't really out there to the public, unless you kind of are tapped in. But what you just said is like an example of that, right? The person intended, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. I'm gonna, visualize, or I don't know actually what exactly the process was, right? But she just intended, maybe she didn't even visualize, she just intended, this is what I'm thinking, it's gonna show up on that water. And it did, which is remarkable. But it's like it really speaks to our capacity of really truly being limitless. Like we really need
Yes.
to start to understand the true reality of the world we live in. And this is the true reality of it, is that it is so important to, like, attention is so important. It can literally create miracles. It can create magic. It can create quantum leap. I feel
Yeah.
like that's like an example of a quantum leap, right?
It
For her to
is.
think
Yeah.
about something in India and then for it to show up in New Zealand. It's literally how do you say, it's compressing not just time but space, right? It's
Yeah.
compressing that space.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm gonna look into that now. Like, 'cause I love water. I'm a water sign.
Yeah.
I talk
Well,
about how to intentionalize your water, how to kind of calibrate it to a higher frequency. And so I talk about that on my YouTube channel. But
well, she's about to be a part of a 50-person conference in San Diego coming up
oh wow.
on water. These are water experts who are
Yeah.
working on this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to happen in San Diego very shortly.
Oh, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Mentioned the two places in the States that I'm like thinking about moving to. So
Oh,
um
interesting.
yeah, but I don't know. I was born in San Diego, but
Ah,
yeah, we'll see. I'm choosing between, yeah, San Diego
what's
and
the other one?
Florida right now.
Oh,
Or
okay, got
Miami.
it.
So Miami area. We gonna say it like that. But that's the two places I'm looking at right now. But I don't know, because it's like part of me. I'm like, do I really want to, do I really want to move to the States? I don't know, like, stay here. I don't know. I don't know yet.
Yeah,
But anyway, so but yeah, so that's really incredible. But water is magic. Water has the ability to just even store information. Like, it's really cool. So, I mean, for me, it really does make sense that water is sentient. But I also come from a space where I really do believe everything is sentient. Like,
I
our
do too.
phones are sentient. The chair that I'm sitting on is consciousness. Everything is consciousness.
Yeah.
But I also understand that not everybody comes from that perspective. So,
It's that invisible world that
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
you can't quite touch,
yeah,
but we're beginning to understand and commune with it
mm-hmm,
in ways that is extraordinary. And if I bring it back to the subject of transformation,
right,
it's it's the same as what we can do with ourselves. Our cells are intelligence, our
yeah,
bodies are intelligent beyond just what we have in our minds.
mm-hmm,
They have an innate ability to do miraculous things, I believe. And I think once people realize that they can create themselves, then the sky's the limit. And if I was going to say ways in which are helpful to that, one would be keep your vibration high, keep your vibe up.
mm-hmm,
It doesn't mean you have to walk around being happy all the time, but if you're feeling low, do something you love. Even thinking of something you love will raise your vibrational consciousness, and
mm-hmm,
it'll take you from to there.
mm-hmm,
And there's where you want to start creating from, is a kind of more expansive, open state. The
mm-hmm,
second thing I would say is plug in and get into that flow state.
mm-hmm,
So genius flow, the power flows, there's all kinds of flows that happen, but especially genius flow. If you plug yourself into this invisible intelligence that's in everything. Let's say you plug into the universe.
Mm-hmm.
You will have so many ideas and so much synergy will happen that it's quite extraordinary. Once you start to live like that, you realize, oh my God, everything's happening so easy. And I think the third one would be realize when you're living inside the suit or the box,
Mm.
like become aware. Oh, I'm in a box. And I'm in a box not of my own making.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think when I was younger that I understood that. And
Mm.
I really understand it now. So I'm very aware the minute my thoughts slip into program thinking
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to limitless possibility thinking,
Sure.
you know? And so you kind of have to start to have an awareness of what's running you. Is
Mm-hmm.
that my thought? Is that my emotion? Or is that something that got programmed into me? And if I just went for it in myself, kind of unleashed, what would I feel and think about that?
Mm.
And it gives you that's the beginning stages of creation. You get free from the box, you raise your vibrational frequency, you think of something you love, and then you start to explore this communion
Mm-hmm.
with the universe, nature, world, whatever people's passion is. And that's what puts you on the path to transformation or transcendence or superseding the life you were expected to have the life that's like wow,
Mm-hmm.
extraordinary, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I love how simple you make it, because I think a lot of people who go into like how to quantum leap, or they kind of complicate it, but yours is very simple. Just do more of what you love, you know.
Yeah.
Be aware of the box that you're in, which is a big one. Um, and then I think then
And
you
plug into the
plug in.
flows.
That's it. Yeah, that's one, two, three. That's
Yeah.
literally it.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really, it's just so easy to digest. And I think it's like, and the other thing too, for people who are struggling with like self-love, um, or it's not struggling with self-love, it's struggling with self-hate, just doing more of what you love, it's like an automatic feedback loop, right? When you start
Yeah,
to
it
do more
is.
of what you love, your body is like, oh my God, like, you love me. We're at this high vibration. We're happy. We're
Yeah.
being happier every single day.
Yeah.
That's kind of the easiest way to pour in self-love into you.
Let me
And
let me give you my view of that because
mhm,
I have one simple step to that. If people try to love themselves, sometimes they find that hard.
mhm,
But if they do something loving or kind for someone else, they
mhm,
like themselves a lot better.
okay. Love
And so it really is about you kind of our world has been consumed with personal development
that. Mhm,
and self. And there is a point at which the self sort of becomes irrelevant.
mhm,
And that's the point at which you become who you're really meant to become.
mhm,
I know that's a bit of a paradox of what I'm saying. It sounds weird that I'm saying that, but that's my experience that if I was trying to work on myself,
mhm,
I wouldn't get there in a quantum leap.
mhm,
If I work on something bigger, something greater,
mhm,
I get there immediately
mhm,
because the universe provides the forces, the flows,
mhm,
the ideas, the power, the energy, the vitality, the connections, the synergy, the all of the abundance, the magic, in order to fulfill it. And then you start to really like yourself.
mhm,
And that grows into you love yourself.
mhm.
It's kind of like come at it from a different angle. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So it's like, so just to like break it down. So you're saying to just like mm, intends for the highest thing to happen, and just by you falling in line with that, you can kind of skip the step by step.
Yeah. Personal development is a bit cycle, it
Mm,
cycles like this. And then occasionally you do this. Yeah, but it's got cycles to
mhm,
it. Whereas quantum leaps, I don't think it's about the self. I think
mm,
it's about the greater. And when you give yourself over to the greater,
mhm,
then the self becomes who you always wanted to become
mhm,
because you've given yourself over to the greater. Now, let me clarify something because I'm not talking about, oh, I have a great vision and it's going to take a lot of money and I need to have a lot of people and I'm going to do this and that. That's a visionary piece. And yes, it got contribution. It's amazing. And I wish all people would, have those. But that's not what I'm talking about, giving yourself over to something greater. I'm talking about a surrender of self to the universe's game,
mhm,
to the greater game of life in the universe and on this planet.
mhm,
And when you give yourself over to greater, there's so much assistance that comes with it. It's like you've plugged into the source of everything and it just comes to you effortlessly.
mhm,
So I don't have to run a business.
mhm,
It just comes to me.
mhm,
Yeah, I told you that story about you sending me the invite to be on this
mhm,
podcast where I was with a group of 13 friends and I was saying those words. It's effort, abundance is effortless, and you just kind of plug in and there are limitless opportunities. And as I said, limitless opportunities abound. My phone went ding right in the same second, and it was your invite to be in the podcast. And I said to them, look,
mhm,
and that's how it works. You can actually live in a world of synergy, synchronicity, opportunities, great people, great friendships, great fulfillment. That is so possible for everyone to do.
mhm,
Well, when I say everyone, I know people are going to say, what about wars? And what about, and all of that kind of thing. And I get that. I'm deeply compassionate for those things. But for me, my work at changing the world is about fundamentally recreating the consciousness, the energy, the living templates that
mhm,
let us all supersede wars and hatred and racism and all of that kind of stuff. That we come into a place of connection, that we see the source and the intelligence and the genius in every single person. And we
mhm,
celebrate it and we call it forth. That's one of the foundations for me that's essential to a new reality,
mhm,
is that everyone is richly appreciated and understood.
mm. That's beautiful. Yeah, and it's like I love that you say richly appreciated and understood. How would you go about doing that? I mean, so does it what I'm like interpreting is like, it starts from you working on not working on, but radically diving into this field of abundance of just doing what makes you happy, really.
Yeah, doing what you love.
So are you saying from that point, then we can start to cultivate this reality of love for other people too? How like
Well, my way into this, and there are probably many ways, but my way into it is to witness magnificence in everyone.
mm-hmm,
And that can be challenging when people are trying to convince you otherwise.
mm-hmm. Right, right, right.
Because a lot of people say, no, 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 I'm not that, because I will see their magnificence. But it alters people to be seen wondrously.
Mm-hmm,
Even if the reality defies that, even if their self-belief defies that. Like
mm-hmm,
in a simple way, you take a teacher who gets a kid in school, a
mm-hmm,
kid who's lost, and a teacher gets them and sees them and recognizes them. That kid's pathway is altered in life
mm-hmm,
because their potential can be more easily fulfilled because someone got them.
mm-hmm.
Well, my view is, why don't we just all get one another?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to live as best I can like that. I won't say I'm
Mm-hmm.
100% successful all the time,
Mm-hmm.
but when I'm coaching and working with people, that's the way I work.
Mm-hmm.
And I do the same now with oceans and nature and forests and trees and bees and, you know, the stars in the sky, and I witness their magnificence.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you do that, it changes something in you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it makes of you a better being, a
Mm-hmm.
better soul, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and opens the doors to possibility for you. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, so for me, it's very easy to witness the the magnificence in nature, because it's so abundant and it's so easy to see and to experience how abundant nature can be, how abundant the stars can be. The stars are infinite. If you've ever seen, you know, the Milky Way on a clear night, it's literally like, it's really crazy, but um if you can really see it on clear night, you stare at one spot in the sky, right? You don't just
Yeah.
see 4 stars, like over like, you know, a minute, you start to see 8 stars and like, you know, 10 stars if you stare in the same place, because it's truly infinite. So it's very, in my opinion, it's very easy to see that in nature. But how do we see that with other people? I think that is, for me at least, would definitely be, and maybe for some of the people listening, it could be
Well,
more of a challenge. Obviously, if
well,
they choose to make it,
here's a
but
there are many ways of doing it, but here's a simple way of doing it. When we're with someone, we have a frame for them.
mm-hmm,
So, oh, I see you this way, I experience you this way. So you create a frame. Can you see, as I'm doing that, you can feel yourself like this, right?
mm-hmm,
But if I see you
mm-hmm,
even expectantly, excitedly, like
mm-hmm,
just willing to witness something extraordinary coming out of it, can you feel the difference as I did one versus the other in yourself?
mm-hmm,
It's an energetic frame.
mm-hmm,
So when we have thoughts about people, we have expectations about people, and we put the frame around them. And
mm-hmm,
then they get to speak inside that frame and live inside that frame with us. So they
mm-hmm,
show up how we are willing to be with them.
mm-hmm,
So you open the frame up and you get excited about what's in there,
mm-hmm,
what's going to come forth from that person, what's their potential and possibility. And even if you didn't say a word, if all you did was open that up
mm-hmm,
excitedly, they
mm-hmm.
would show up differently.
Mm. Okay, so yes, I mean, going back to intention, it's all about what you intend, maybe even before the interaction. Um,
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I mean, this is something that I think that I've been working on with myself, because once you start to go through the process of transformation, it kind of wakes up to
Yeah.
how you chose to be in the past. Like, really,
Yeah.
it's like, girl, like we really chose to focus on the negativity for 10 years. Like, girl, like what we doing, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah.
um, so it's really yeah, it's all about intention. So my next question is for people who are really struggling with the intention part, right? People who have been in that negative headspace to the point where, you know, it's still somewhat of a battle. What do you say for those people? How what would you kind of recommend for those people to do?
Give it over to the universe.
Okay.
You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
like when we're trying to force our will upon ourselves
Mm-hmm.
and push ourselves forward with something, if it's not working, if it's not got oomph and love and passion and flow and excitement and
Mm-hmm.
movement,
Mm-hmm.
stop and reassess, are you doing the right thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times people are doing what other people have said you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
The modalities of success, the ways in which we're supposed to do it. but every person should do it in their own unique way. And they should do it with love and joy at the base of it, you know? And so I would say stop trying to force a will, like an intention like that, and turn it over. And so you can still be for the same thing if you want to be, but there's a kind of surrender moment where you go, okay, universe, what you got? And then in this opening of yourself, up comes your genius, up comes your flow, up comes the energy. And then you do one thing you love. Just start by doing one thing you love. That's all you have to do. It'll ripple from there. I often find people think like, oh, they're going to write a book, so they have to plan the book out with, you know, all 50 chapters before they start, right? So that could take a year before they get around to writing the book. And I'm like, no, put your fingers to the keyboard and write the first chapter or the 10th chapter, whatever. My husband, he wrote this book where he wrote the last chapter first, and then the middle chapters, and then the first chapter at the end.
Sometimes
You
that
know,
feels like
he's kind of like that. But just do one thing you love and turn it over to the universe. So that's how things move.
the one thing you love and then turn it over to the universe. And hold on. One thing you love and turn it over. So I asked this question because I know some people who are really they recognize that they want to transform into a new space of happiness, of abundance, of gratitude, of love.
Yeah.
And in the past, they've lived sometimes for decades for some people, in in a space of lack, in a space of negativity, in a space of fear. And so, there's some people who are really challenged with that past narrative. So that's why I asked this question,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna kind of push it a little further.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so what if I have a negative voice coming in my head, or just negative, and usually this comes from somebody else, right? I always tell people, like, it's not, you cannot recognize it as yourself. Recognize it as that was somebody at some point when you were younger who projected that onto you, and now it's become
Yeah.
this voice in your head, but recognize that it's not you. But anyway, so they did the one thing that they loved, and the negative voice comes back again. What would be the next step?
Well, one is learn not to listen to the voice ever. It has no good advice for you
Right.
whatsoever.
Absolutely.
And I would say unlock what's inside you. So I'm not meaning you specifically, but people lock down their passions, their visions, their genius, their joy. They lock it down. So they literally like put it in a closet and put a brick wall around it and lock her up, right? And then all you've got is this cycle in your head, the record that's going over and over, right? So what you have to do is open up what's inside you, unlock the cupboard door, the cellar door, unlock it, and let what's deep in you spring forth. And you can do that quietly on your own. You could do it in the garden. You could do it on a beach. You could do it on a mountain top, wherever. You could do it in the forest. You don't have to go and do it publicly to the world, but you gotta get the inner stuff unleashed, because that's where the mastery is, that's where the power is, that's where the genius is of your own stuff. That's where the good stuff lives. And so it's not, and it doesn't come from processing emotional issues, which is most of the world is consumed with processing emotional issues at the moment and over the last 20, 30 years.
Myself included. I ain't gonna lie. Myself included, yes.
It's a cycle that really doesn't get you very far. You think it does because you think you've had a breakthrough,
Mm-hmm.
but then it comes back again. And then
Mm-hmm.
it comes back again. And then it comes back again. Because but as soon as you give more attention to it,
Mm-hmm.
it embeds itself
Mm-hmm.
in you. And so what I say is forget the past.
Mm-hmm.
Just let her sit to one side for a minute, just don't give it so much credence.
Mm-hmm.
What's inside every person is uniquely wondrous.
Mm-hmm.
And work on finding out what's inside you that's uniquely wondrous.
Mm-hmm.
And let that kind of burst forth from you.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where great art is born from, and great music, and great,
Mm-hmm.
what writing and all the creativity comes from here,
Mm-hmm.
I think. And then there's also the part that comes from here and then marries with it. But
Mm-hmm.
it's the inner piece that's, I think, essential to those people that are having the voice in the head and living in with the past ruling the show kind of thing.
Okay. So just continue to unlock what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do
Okay.
things do things that are wild and crazy that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Do things that are unique to you. The world is too much cookie cutter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the 20 steps to success.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like that. Every one of us is so unique. And I think that's just the most beautiful thing,
Mm-hmm.
that we are so unique.
Mm-hmm.
And it's letting that uniqueness find its way in life
Mm-hmm.
is where you get the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. I keep on saying that's beautiful, but it is very beautiful because it's kind of focused on well, yeah, I mean just the power of attention, focusing on so just to kind of summarize real quick, just focusing on who you really are meant to become and be in this moment. No, I don't say become, be, right? Focus
Yeah.
on that being, focus on the part of you that is passionate about something, focusing on that passion and putting more attention on that.
Yeah.
And you're saying that eventually or maybe radically in the moment, the bad thoughts will go away by focusing on the passion, by focusing on really what your soul came here to do.
Yeah.
Um,
That's where I talk about the surrender piece, surrender it to the universe.
mm-hmm,
You know, I believe that everything that happens to us is designed to move us towards a possibility of ourselves that doesn't yet exist.
I love that. Yeah.
There's nothing that happens that isn't that
Mm-hmm.
going forward. People getting sick, people losing jobs, people dying, all of it
Mm-hmm.
is destined to move us on a path towards who we could yet become. So there's what is, there's the potential of kind of what's there and waiting, and then there's what's wanting to become.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get in touch with what's wanting to become, the possibility of you that isn't yet,
Mm-hmm.
that to me is where the excitement is there.
Mm-hmm. In the in the space that right that you maybe haven't even imagined before, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could never have imagined,
Mm-hmm.
even as a young woman, when I graduated university, that I would live in the UK, be married to a Brit,
Mm-hmm.
and be doing consciousness work
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and energy work and writing 16, but no way was that anywhere in my imagination of what was possible for a future for me.
Mm-hmm.
That was just didn't exist, but I came into the land of what wants to become,
Mm-hmm.
and that changed everything for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because even for me right now, my view of myself is well, but I guess technically, yeah, I guess I could expand it even more. But even the view of myself right now and the view of the work I came here to do on Earth, is already pretty expanded. Like I think from the average
Yeah.
person, like I really
Yeah.
intend to live multiple lifetimes within this lifetime. Like it's really, really kind of ridiculous. I think the average
Yeah.
person would be like, how are you gonna be able to do all that? And I'm like, I don't know, but
Yeah.
figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then how do you expand past that, you know? And I think when it comes to what's coming to me is the movement of transformation
Yeah.
is that it's kind of like so I'm like I just made a reel about this yesterday, but it's like rolling down a hill. You know, you just or maybe rolling up the hill. I don't know how you want to interpret it, but
Yeah.
you just kind of like transform and transform and transform and transform.
Yeah. You
And
do.
kind of in an endless way,
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
limitless way. To kind of get to this point where you're this being of expansion, right?
Yes. Yep.
And yeah, it's kind of crazy. I don't know how, you know, being in this human state right now, I just don't see how we can expand. I mean, I know I can see how we can expand our state, right? But I'm curious about how that transformation is going to happen. I think that's the best way to say
For
it.
yourself, or you mean for the world?
Both, both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess maybe for myself, but even for the world, right? Because I think at the end of the day, we're just examples of what the world is to become, right? So,
Yeah. Well, I hope I am an example of what the world can become.
of course. Yeah, it's like I mean, yeah, that's like
Well,
I think that's
if
the whole reason.
nobody was at work on it, if no
Yeah.
one was working and inside the belief that we are amazing, that we are creative, that we can do anything, that all global unity, global connection with all life, the thriving of life, the miraculousness of life is possible. If nobody believed that, it would never happen.
Right, right.
Because we believe it and live into it, we create the consciousness of that in everything,
Mm-hmm.
in all life, and it becomes the reality. So I then make it a living template in my own life
Mm-hmm.
for that. So I live into it in every conceivable way that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I do the bigger work so that it's working for everybody in the world,
So
you
what
know?
are some of the ways, I know we're gonna wrap up soon, but what are some of the ways that you lean into that practically? So if you want to just give some tips for the audience, like what are some ways? And just through your own example, not necessarily
Okay,
like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, so in September, I got ill for just a little bit, and it wasn't bad. It was just I was on the couch for 8 days. I couldn't move. And I wasn't blowing my nose or sneezing or anything. I just had the zero energy,
Mm-hmm.
like nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, that can get you really annoying, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So the normal response to that be, what's wrong with me? Why is this happening? I don't like this. I want to be well again. That would be a normal response. My response was like this: what's happening?
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized because I am a source for the matrix of reality. So I've often been heard to say in the last years, I got this world turning out. Like I
Mm-hmm.
got it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was during those 8 days, I was told you have to let go of reality so the old reality can collapse. And this is the way we're going to get you to do that because you're so ingrained in it. It's such a part of my lifestyle
Mm-hmm.
that I was put on the couch for 8 days and watched a lot of good TV.
Right. That's
And yeah, the old reality began to collapse. And I
mm-hmm.
can see that now. I can see it happening all over the place as I watch it. Um, and so that was an example of me not going, what's wrong with me? I don't like this. I don't want this. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's a human response to it. I instead went to my greater response and to the universe. What's going on? What's this for? Those are
Mm-hmm.
great questions. What's this for?
Oh, what's
And
this
and
for?
as soon as I understood, I relaxed into it and I had a good time
Mm-hmm.
rather than I was annoyed by it.
Give me 1 second. Let me get this real quick. There you go. Those are scammers. That's what that is. Okay, so anyway, um, so hold on. I wanted to go back to the kind of the reset, the breaking down of your old reality. Can you just explain that a little bit more, right? So I guess so physically in this realm, you were couched for
Yeah,
8 days, which I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, it's funny because in the past couple of months I've been called to take a break. So for me, that's like, okay, I'll take 1 or 2 days, like, because really since September, I haven't even taken like a whole week off. And it's something,
yeah,
it's a conversation for another time.
yeah,
But you literally sat on the couch for 8 days. The universe was like, no, you need to pause real quick.
yeah.
But how does that play a part in breaking down the old matrix, breaking down the old reality? Can you just like talk about that a little bit more?
Well, that's a complex subject.
Okay.
No, I'm quite willing to talk about it.
Okay.
Um, there's a new reality
Mm-hmm.
that's full of new breakthrough ways of living and being and connecting and intelligence and genius flow and synergy and synchronicity and abundance and leadership is different there. It's completely different. And it exists like this around the world. Like it's like a shining bright surround
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, and it embeds straight into physicality and straight into the earth. So it's not like up there somewhere, not here. It's all of it. It's like whole.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's an old version of reality that runs like this. And if you think
Mm-hmm.
about it, if you think about watching the news, you'll
Mm-hmm.
go here
Right.
in your vibrational frequency. Like, oh my God, you'll drop into a frequency. If you think about different layers of consciousness, like if you think, uh, oh, well, we can, I've heard coaches say this, and I don't believe it, but this is what coaches say. You can never escape your past. You can never get rid of all your past
Mm-hmm.
issues. Never. I
Mm-hmm.
had a coach say that. Not, I wasn't being coached by them. They were a master coach. And we
Mm-hmm.
were having a conversation about transformation. And that's what they said. And I was like, are you crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how could you believe that and then be a coach?
Mm-hmm.
They,
Right.
and so when someone says that you can never escape the past, that's about here
Mm-hmm.
in the stream of consciousness, in the matrix that makes up the soup we live in, the
Mm-hmm.
intelligence that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think in the old consciousness, which is like, it's like a dissolving layer of
Mm-hmm.
lower vibrational frequency, it's
Mm-hmm.
made up of beliefs and thoughts. We are individuals. We are
Mm-hmm.
separate from nature. We are separate from one another. The mind is everything. IQ is the goal, the
Yeah.
success is. Those are the beliefs that make up that system that's at a frequency that's here. Whereas if I say, we are all magnificent, we are all connected, water, trees, oceans, forests, bees are like super intelligent. The universe is an intelligent force, thriving life everywhere. That's got a different feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're holding a matrix of consciousness, I'm holding the new reality in place. Even the new reality wanted to take a leap, and I was holding it here
Mm-hmm.
in those 8 days. So the old reality was starting to dissolve and
Mm-hmm.
fall out of it, just dissolve, be
Mm-hmm.
gone. You can start to see it happening now. It's all falling apart.
Oh, it's a hot mess, and it's just gonna get worse too. Like, yeah.
Well,
And
and for me, it's a good thing it's falling
oh,
apart.
I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I'm gonna. No, it's fine. I don't know what's going on. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, for me, it's a good thing the old reality is falling apart. It needs to. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean it's inevitable.
I'm not saying I want terrible things to happen in the world. I don't. I want great things to happen in the world. But
Mm-hmm.
as long as the old people leading the Boeing execs that just got fired because they created a culture where their employees couldn't report safety issues.
Ooh,
There's a
girl.
good one. Like that's a big shift for the world, for leaders in the world to go, oh, wow. Because those guys all just got fired, as far as I understand it. The top execs at Boeing just all got fired. And so, like, whoa, that's an interesting dissolution of what is happening, because the next iteration of leaders have to go, we have to do something different. We have to come into, I call it source leadership. So that's a whole other of my things. And source leadership is different from leadership, hierarchical leadership.
Yes, it's I mean it's leading from source. So it's yeah. So
And
please explain more about
inclusion and
yeah.
acceptance, and it's a completely different thing. I've been passionate about it for years.
Mhm.
So yeah. Anyways, that's a whole other topic that we don't want to get into.
Like, yeah. We could definitely talk about that too, because that's something I've been touching on too, is like how to just do things different. Do things
Yeah,
different because I see a lot of people doing the same thing. A lot of coaches, a lot of
yeah,
people in this transformative field, right?
yeah,
Um, just kind of doing the same thing, coming from the same,
yeah.
the same place. And kind of trapped kind of on that linear plane you were explaining, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes even though the face is different, maybe it's a woman, or it's somebody else, it's still coming from that same dogma, that same kind of, you need to do this and this to get what you want. You have to
Mm.
I don't know what's like
Well, let me tell you
uh,
that as a coach working transformatively, it
mm-hmm,
has to be spontaneous in the moment. You don't learn, do this, do this, do this, do this, and then the transformation occurs.
mm-hmm,
It's a spontaneous moment of connection
mm-hmm,
when this happens.
mm-hmm,
And then the sky's the limit
mm-hmm,
after that. And it's how you learn to be in those moments spontaneously. Is every moment's different. Every person is different.
mm-hmm,
And so for me, a lot of the coach training is teaching tips and techniques, which may be useful in some ways, but the power of transformation is in the spontaneity of the moment.
mm.
It's in the connection between the two people that's unspoken.
So yeah, I know we go on. I need to break this down just for our audience. So how so to get to that point, right? From to get to that point, do you get to that point with intention? Do you just tell the universe, "Hey, I'm ready. Bring it." Like that, like what is that the
It
step? Is the only
depends.
thing you need to do?
It depends. There's a bunch of ways. So if I'm working with someone, like if somebody hires me as a coach, often they have things they want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to know these things. I want to look at this. I want to create a plan to do it. So they're directing the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of go along with it usually and
Mm-hmm.
do amazing things,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, in the midst of it. But when they don't direct the show, it turns out much better. When they say, do me,
Mm-hmm.
let's
Right.
see where we go.
Mm-hmm.
then then I'm free to create those spontaneous moments
Mm-hmm.
where something extraordinary happens between us and something amazing moves in them. And so it's kind of like that. And also there are moments, prime moments of movement and potential for people.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we'll just do regular, good, great, innovative stuff. And other times it's like, whoa, here we go. You can feel the energy, the power, the there. It's an excitement running through you and the person you're with
Mm-hmm.
that's experiencing transformation. You see?
Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Just coming from that space of allowing, right? Allowing for change to happen, or just allowing. I think that's really
Yeah.
what it is. don't specify what needs to happen or don't try to control it, right? Just
Yeah.
allow. Um, but one thing I will say, because like just from my experience, I know it's hard to I don't want to say this. Ask for things to allow with love, right? I think using that key word of love is going to help a lot of people because sometimes when we allow stuff, I mean, oftentimes it is the medicine that we need. And sometimes we're prepared for it, sometimes we're not. But if you add that keyword of love in there, then the things that need to happen for you to get to where you need to be are going to happen a lot more gracefully, a lot more just
Yeah.
with more love, basically. So I
Yeah.
just,
My way of saying that would be surrender to greatness.
yeah, there you go.
Let greatness point the way for you. Let it
Yeah.
grab you up and soar you across the skies, you know?
Mhm.
That's the way it works.
And this is
Yeah.
different from following your heart, right? Or would you say it's the
Yeah,
same?
very different from following your heart. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so last question. We got to end it with this. So what
Okay.
is, I mean, you are just like a catalyst for expansion, but
Yeah.
what is the expanded version of Solera? What is that expanded version? What does that look like?
You mean more from here?
Yeah. Like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. This
Oh
look,
my God.
this part of the show. This part of the show. What does that expanded version mean? I really, this is like a
Oh,
whole, you know.
I'm almost not quite ready to say it.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That's
No,
fine.
no, I'll say it, but it's people
Okay.
will go, what is she talking about? Um, I think we're becoming a new race of beings, a completely remade new race of beings on Earth in bodies, definitely. But not only are we global citizens, but we're universal citizens.
Yes.
We are source intelligent, much more than the mind. We can do things with our bodies, our beings, we have beautiful genius that flows through us. We can create like never before. We are becoming a new race of beings.
Mm-hmm.
And as when we call ourselves a human, we mean we're walking with 2 feet on the earth and we're in a body.
Mm-hmm.
And that consciousness of human is very small.
Mm-hmm.
But if I said we're Earthians,
Mm-hmm.
it feels different. If I said we're universal beings
Mm-hmm.
who walk on Earth, who live on Earth, it's got a very different feeling. And I think we're remaking ourselves as a race. And that's something that people will go, whoa, what is she talking about?
Mm-hmm. Not me.
So,
I completely agree. And it kind of it goes to this point. This is why I think I like the word human being because I think that really describes the point we're at right now, right?
yeah,
We're going from this space of being human and also
yeah,
universal beings, right? We're kind of
yes,
combining that, and that's the transformation
yeah,
that we're going through
yeah,
currently.
yeah,
So
exciting. Well, that's one of the possibilities in front of me. So,
yes, I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for like
oh,
being
I loved it. Yeah,
empowered to answer that.
brilliant. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So thank you so much, Soleira. If you guys would like to work with Soleira, please check her out. All of her links are in the description below. You can check her out at soleiragreen.com. And she also has free videos on how to quantum leap. And let me say this, she is an expert in quantum leaping. So if you want some expert advice that you can't find on YouTube, you can find it on her website. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you so much. Any last words?
Surrender to greatness.
Yes.
Those
Okay.
would be
Thank
my
you,
last
guys.
words. Yeah,
Thank you
brilliant.
so much. Okay.
Thank you. It was wonderful.